Welcome back to another incredible episode of the Missing Triggers podcast. Um, hey, Sebastian, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Kyle. How are you?
Man, this is like the second time we're doing this, third time we're doing this intro, and you know what, I'm gonna get it right one of these days.
Yeah.
Um, Before we get into any meat and potatoes of anything, we appreciate you guys clicking on our video, wanting to listen to our podcast, or if you're on Spotify, we also appreciate you over there. Links in the description for YouTube if you've ever wanted to, listen on the go. We have our Spotify link down below. And also on top of that, too, we have a Patreon link. Now, it's literally just a kind of use it as a donation link right now. We're looking at ways to try to, get a little bit of income so we can get our equipment together to have a setup. If you guys are familiar with Funder, with Tall Timmy and Flukenbox, shout out to those fine gentlemen. We want something like that. That's been our goal. And hopefully, if you guys feel generous enough and you want to help us proceed in our endeavor of doing the Missing Triggers podcast, head over there to Patreon. We're gonna have just like a donation link of like $1, or if you wanted to pledge your own specific amount, that'd be cool. No pressure, don't have to do it, but it is there just in case you want to. So something else that we wanted to get into was
Yes.
the plans, what we're going to be doing with this YouTube channel. Because I think for some reason there was a light lit under you, and you're in go mode with this content stuff, and wanting to do this stuff, and I'm all for it, obviously. Tell the people kind of what your idea was that we're going to start doing on the channel as far as content.
Soon, once I get a little bit better of equipment, I'm gonna start making videos and showcasing Flesh and Blood online and just gameplay and kind of like what they have in other games. If you ever seen like the channel Fireball, like Reduke, or if you're a Pokemon fan, Tricky Gym, just there's a lot of Flesh and Blood, we really haven't had this opportunity to have a software where you can just play it, not really communicate with your opponent, which usually it's better to play, on a software where there's more communication because it embodiments the actual game. But for content creating purposes, Flesh and Blood online is perfect because you can play a game with your opponent. It's automated. You can, you know, if we do decide to live stream at some point, we can read the chat, talk about plays, and that's the whole point of it is basically either going live or recording some good gameplay, doing a deck profile on it, having a sideboard, and just giving people, a nice little piece of competitive content to look at and just watch, honestly. And I feel like that's something that was missing in Flesh and Blood because with TTS, you have the problem of both people have to talk to each other, have to talk about the game. It's kind of hard to, read a chat or really, watch a game and have the person who's playing the deck talk out their plays. Recently, I played Magic for a little bit recently, and it was very helpful just trying to learn and establish some pointers in the game was watching people doing live streams and then them going, well, I can take this line of play or I can take this line of play, and if my opponent reacts like this, I can do that. I just feel like that's a very helpful piece of content in any card game, and I feel like now with Flesh and Blood Online, that's possible. And that kind of goes into the whole like Patreon thing, possibly in the future. We'll get really in depth with these sideboard guides and continuously update the decks and maybe offer some coaching or something like that. So just plans and stuff to come.
For sure, for sure. And I think I think that's something that is untapped in this game, like you said. And I'm looking forward to see what you do, and then obviously, I'll be along there with you, and we'll tackle that beast together. But before we get into our main topic, our first topic, and the title of this episode, if you guys don't mind, consider clicking subscribe on the YouTube channel. Our first goal is 100 subscribers, and we're at 58 right now. So a subscription would mean the world to us, to helping us grow. And also on top of this, before we even get into the first topic, leave a comment down below on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, what your initial thoughts are on Flesh and Blood Online, and if you think it's going to help grow the game, and any sort of feedback in regards to Flesh and Blood Online. I know they're really wanting to get all their criticism and all their pointers and everything from the community so they can help grow that to be something insane. So without further ado, let's talk about some Flesh and Blood Online, because this has been the hot topic for the last week and a half, 2 weeks just about. So yeah. So pretty much Flesh and Blood Online is a client that just came out, and like Sebastian said just a couple minutes ago, it's a little more automated, and you don't have to talk to your opponent. And it's kind of like other card game online clients, such as MTGO and Dueling Book for Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think this is going to take Flesh and Blood to the next level as far as testing goes, and as far as a lot of information.
Yeah, and I think what people are missing here is this is actually the best thing that's ever happened for the standalone casual, I wouldn't say casual player, but the person who's like, I want to get better at my game. I'm not on a team. I'm not super competitive. I just want to get decent and just jam games and
get the reps. Yeah,
get the reps, right? And it's really good because you can't misplay. You can misplay, of course, by playing your cards wrong, but you're learning the interactions as they're happening, because you can't mess up an interaction or something like that. And this is great because I feel like basically teams already had this advantage, right? When you have 4 or 5 people or 6 people that can just continuously play with each other, that are comfortable with each other, right? But for more casual person, they kind of had to go into the sea of the main Fab Discord and go, anyone want to catch a game, right? And
yeah,
hope that someone with decent skills was going to actually play them.
for sure. And this cuts out a lot of steps in that.
Exactly. Yep.
So I think this is a huge step in the right direction for Flesh and Blood in general. I see a lot of people on Twitter talking about it and making it a big deal. And when you have people in the likes of like Tarek Patel, and you have Brendan Patrick, and you have all these content creators talking about Flesh and Blood Online, it's bound to make an impact. We did see one one point that a few people were making about the percentage and data points that it gives for for each match in the deck that you play. If you want to elaborate on that, what was that conversation like, and kind of what were you thinking about this particular topic on the percentage and data points?
Essentially with the Flesh and Blood, their deck builder, the dev's deck builder, it's February, right?
February,
Yeah. Kind of a tongue twister. But essentially, once you build a deck on there and play it, it gives you so many percentage points. I personally haven't done it, but I've seen other people talk about it. I know you built a deck on there, but it gives you percentage points and everything. And even after a game, if you're just using a FabDB link, it gives you, how much damage did you deal, this, that. It's just a lot of data. And basically people were saying they don't want a set to drop, and within 2 weeks, at the meta solved. Like, okay, yep, got this. Everyone knows this is the best deck, and now everyone just plays the best deck, or the deck to beat the best deck, and now you create a one deck format or something to that regards, and they just don't want the metas to be solved too quickly and not have these organic moments like kind of like the Matt Folks with the Briar situation, both times actually.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah,
it really was 2 times,
yeah,
right?
2 times with the Briar. Um, meaning at UK Nats last year, he brought Briar, Lightning Briar, that he worked on with Tariq Patel, and it was just
It
insane.
fucking
Oh,
warped the entire format.
yeah, it warped the U.S. Nationals meta so hard it was actually ridiculous.
Like
But
actually
then
put
you,
it like it. Yeah, I don't want to remember that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and then with this one, belittle into Briar, um, and I would say even back another organic moment we can kind of think about is like
Pro
Pro
Tour.
Tour New Jersey. Yeah, Pro Tour New Jersey, where you had a Combo Kano come up. That was
Yep.
a nice little organic moment deck that these people tested. And then I would say even with Vegas with Tyler Horsepool's Prism deck that nobody knew what was going on.
Hell,
In my
even your chain deck, right? Like,
yeah,
shout out to Alex for like doubling down on that, like with the tremors and the razors and stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
the deck I piloted that people weren't expecting. So people worry that these moments where like these really cool decks and nobody was expecting come into the meta and they just start tearing up.
I will be honest. I kind of agree with that for a multitude of reasons. My main point, and this is kind of like what I always think about as far as um, viewership, audience, and stuff. When I'm viewing a tournament, if I'm not at this particular calling and it's being streamed, I want that. I want that Josh Lau triple Lumina moment.
Yeah.
I want these out of left field moments in the game where it's going to get people talking. That's the number one thing you want, is to keep people engaged. And if we know for a fact that let's just, for example, let's say that Flesh and Blood Online has been around for like 3 months, 2 months, and Matt Folks has played the Belittle Briar deck a fuck ton, and then everybody's like, oh, well, we all know Belittle Briar is going to be a thing. What we saw in top 8 of the Pro Tour in like Singapore, for example, is going to be the norm in it's going to be like Star of a Meta all over again, where everybody's going to be playing like that deck. And that's not okay for in a viewer standpoint, which I think that's where you want this game to grow, is the viewership, because people are going to play this game. There's no doubt about it. You want to keep the viewers engaged and keep them seeing new things instead of the same old shit every single round, just about, So I firmly agree with the organic moment side of things. And it's no fun just having a soft format. A couple weeks into a set being released. That's not fun.
I agree with you to the most extent there, but basically kind of like what I said at the beginning with like it gives the power to the more semi-competitive player who, like I said, it's not on a team but they are competitive. They are going to the callings and stuff like that, and they just want to do well. Basically, kind of like as we were talking about, right? Like, because we're on a team, we were able to discover the Tremors chain a little bit easier because I was already playing one Razor with Flock, and that was the whole thing. And then if we weren't on the team and testing all together, none of us would have thought of that on their own.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, even though there's less organic moments like that, there was already a certain point where people would solve the meta and then just keep it on the hush hush.
I mean, that's kind of what I think happened with the Lightning Briar deck last year.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just kind of like, do we want these things to be known?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with them being known.
Still gotta beat me. But I agree. For anybody wanting a link to Flesh and Blood Online, I'm gonna link the website and February in the description below for the YouTube channel. If you guys want to check it out yourself, I'll actually leave their Twitter, and I think they I'll leave all that for you guys, so you guys can also check out what they're doing and see their mission, because I do think this is I do think this is something that's going to be pretty big in the very near future. One thing that I actually want to see, and I think they can actually integrate it, and it'd be pretty neat. Brendan Patrick, I think, put on Twitter today something about like a ranked system or like a ratings or something like that. I think if they make I'm
pretty sure we talked about it last week, right? At the end, when we kind of just mentioned it, we weren't fully discussing about it, but we mentioned it.
We might have. I would really like to see some sort of ranked playlist, in a sense, where players can play for ELO, and so you have an on-site ELO system with and you have seasons, for example, and so like let's say a season's 30 days, and so you can no prizing if you want to do that, that'd be sick, but like no prize or anything, but then players can kind of see where they stack up versus other people and the ELO, and I think that would be pretty sick. I think being able to grind towards something on Flesh and Blood Online, I think it'd be very rewarding, and I think it would bring in a lot more traction to the website, and I think it'd bring a lot more attraction to viewers, and also from what you're planning on doing, which is to be streaming it or being recording, testing decks and stuff, and making content out of it. It puts something online for us. It's like, okay, well, let's try to go 5-0 and rated for this particular season or whatever it is, and we make a series out of it. So like, there's so many different content aspects that obviously goes through my mind as far as something along those lines. So I would love to see in the future some sort of ELO system, and like a ranked playlist, and like a I guess a social playlist, if we're gonna try to go off of like Halo terms, maybe.
Plus
it's like unranked and ranked,
because then you're playing against players with a similar skill level too.
Exactly. Exactly. So it helps in that regard too. So I agree, wholly agree. But yeah, Flesh and Blood Online, fucking chef's kiss. I think you're onto. You guys are onto something here. Shout out to everyone working on that, and cheers to the future, because I think it's going to be like I said, if it's not like a broken record, it's going to be something fierce very soon. I'm pretty sure. So, with that being said, let's talk about last weekend in Pro Tour Lille, because obviously you and I were the only two out of the group that wasn't able to go, and so we tried to watch what we could, because the damn tournament started at 4:00 in the morning. So
basically, I stayed up for the top 8.
Yeah,
that's what I did. I just pulled an all-nighter.
Crazy. Before we get into like top 8 and like the meta breakdown for the top 8 and stuff, I do want to state one thing. Lumina go Boomina. If anybody saw the first CC match in Swiss, Josh actually was on it, and that was, to me, that was like the coolest part of the weekend. Because the whole this I mentioned it earlier. This is kind of like that organic moment we're talking about, where you have the as Flake calls him now, the accountant. I think that's hilarious. And so you've got Lumina, Beacon of Victory game, and you can pay for gallantry gold. That's incredible. So, seeing Josh do well in that feature match is pretty awesome. Getting his his little time to shine for a moment at a bigger event. So, and Twitter went crazy, and the chat went crazy once he was doing all that. So I know that helped him a lot with certain things, and I'm glad to see other people enjoy what he's doing, because everybody in the chat was like, "Oh, well, that's the Fab 201 guy." That's the professor on Fab 201, and I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. Is the impact that he's making, and then obviously he gets everybody to watch him do what he preaches in his videos. Like that's neat. That's just neat to me. So
exactly.
So I think he ended up getting like 81st, which RIP. But with Bolton, that's pretty awesome. So
for sure.
let's go over the top 8, because I'm pretty sure we were kind of right in a way. We were wrong about the Guardian. It seems like there was a lot of Prism gatekeeping. Here we are, gatekeeping the Guardian players, and
yeah, what happened was, I think, I know for sure that the Bud Eden guy, right, that's the same with the Lexi deck. And then
No, that's our local player, Easton Douglas.
Easton Douglas. Sorry.
Yeah, Easton Douglas of Team Ascent, the hometown TCG Ascent guys.
Yep, there. Um, he got, I think he got gate kept last round. I believe that one of the Prism players played him either the second to last round or the last round that kept him out of top 8. And then Michael Hamilton on Oldham played Fino Black the last round, which got him out of top 8.
So Fino
we were
killed
there.
both of them then, because Fino played him in the second to last round, the Lexi player.
Oh, so literally, yeah.
So Fino gate kept both of them.
Exactly.
That match was insane. If you guys can find that and go back and watch, that Prism Lexi match was incredible. Like, the score does not, I think it ended up like 11-0 at the final score or something like that, but that game was incredible. Shout out to Easton on that hybrid Lexi list, because that was really cool. Getting to see that deck. So
we were almost there, because we were like 3 to 4 control decks, 4 aggro decks, or I think I said 5 aggro decks, 3 control decks.
I want to say I said something along those. I want to say I said something like that too. So like, it kind of makes sense. Like, I think what Christian Hawk, I think is the guy's name, the Dash player. I want to say he was playing more of a traditional-ish type dash, where he can pivot between the two types of game plans. So, and you had 2 Prisms. So we had the 4 Briar, 1 Viscerai, 2 Prism, and a Dash. And surprise, surprise, Briar was in each and all 4 of the quarterfinals. And what happened? They all fucking won. So,
some kind of like quarterfinals matches go. I think they were all
they were all great. Good. Yeah,
they were all great. Briar versus the Dash, he fatigued him out. He stuck to his game plan of just blocking out, and that was very well done.
Was that the game? Was that the game where he started Teklo Pounder instead of?
Yes.
Instead of the, what's the card I'm thinking of? The Go Again item.
Yeah.
I can't think of it for the life of me. Induction Chamber. No. That's it.
Induction Chamber. There we go.
God damn it. So I want to say he went on Twitter and was like, wow, I think I punted that by not starting Induction Chamber, and I got greedy and went for Teklo Pounder, which is possible. You never know. So I hate that, I wish Dash would have made a little bit farther, honestly, because it could have taken out some of these Briars. But
I definitely think the Calling Singapore, people were, especially at that high level of top 8.
They kind of targeted it in a way.
It kind of targets it in the way of, like, people know, kind of like Levia, right? You just block it out and eventually it kills itself.
Shout out to you.
It's like, yep.
Friendly banter, by the way, everyone.
Yeah, sure. Basically, the Dash deck has to boost cards to Go Again and to get resources off Teklo Founders. So it's like, eventually, after like 7 turns, they're just out of cards. 5 turns, they're out of cards.
They got all their blue cards, and then you're like, well, here we are.
Then we saw the Fino Black. The next top 8 was Fino Black against the other Briar, and that was a match. That
was the game I didn't watch. That was one of the ones I wasn't able to watch.
And it was just a pretty back and forth Briar match. I think he said he forgot to play an Aura on turn. He was supposed to double Aura turn 1, but he attacked and forgot that he didn't have Go Again, so he kind of fell behind already from the beginning.
Classic Fino. Wow.
Yeah, he's like, I punted again. So other than that, I mean, even that, it's like you're at the Pro Tour, nerves are on, forget stuff. It's all good. We've all been there.
We get it. Like, that's just the thing that happens,
Exactly. And then the next game was Viscerai, Pablo Pintor.
Dude,
again.
Shout out to Pablo, man. That dude's killing it. He has to be like top 3 best players in the game. Like, I don't think you can argue that, right?
Won Pro Tour, won the Blitz team calling into top 8 of the Pro Tour.
And top 8 of the freaking Pro Tour. Like, fucking big dickin'. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And that was a crazy match there. Kind of like Pablo's deck, I don't think necessarily did the most it could. And then the Briar deck got Channel Mount on, and then had a funny moment there where Briar bricked on Channel Mount, kept it open a next turn, but Pablo's 3-card hand just wasn't enough. It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a 4-card hand, honestly, but like it just, it was just too generic. He needed to present like I think 15 damage or something like that along those lines so he needed like a Revel or a Mordred Revel, some kind of craziness like that. And it just didn't happen, which is okay. But overall, great game, great play from both players. And then the top 8 match where
this is your favorite match, I think, of top 8, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's one of my favorite matches of all time, and
Really?
that's including mine. In a top 8. So it's just like Matthew Folks, very good player, versus Ian.
Ian Zhang. Shout out to Ian Zhang. He's got a YouTube channel, ENTCG, if you guys want to go check him out.
And just Ian played it so perfectly. And the whole time, Matt Rogers is just like, yeah, this is what I would do here. And then he just does it. He's like, yeah, this is what... And I'm just like, this guy's just making the best move every single turn. And I was actually upset that he didn't win. I was really kind of like... I was like, damn, when you play that perfect and not to win, it just sucks. But that kind of just goes to show you that in Flesh and Blood, you can play perfect and there still has to be a winner at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But it was just a beautifully piloted match. And top 4, get into it. I know you saw some of top 4, right?
Yeah, I did for the most part. It was just wishy-washy, Briar, brain dead stuff for the most part. Want to say it was Bartaz versus the Jacob guy, and then the other one was Matthew Folks versus Shamir. It seemed to me Matt Folks' deck was just rearing in all gears that day. I mean, I don't think he whiffed on a Sonata. I think every single match he played, he hit literally what he needed on the Sonata, and it was just like he's literally just destined to win this tournament.
I didn't see the top 4. I only saw a piece of his top 4, but I know in top 8, I think he was 3 for 3 on Sonata.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't whiff on a Sonata the entire top 8. I don't think.
Then in finals, he was 3 for 3 on Sonata and got exactly what he needed.
Okay, hold the fuck on. This man goes Sonata for 3, and he looks at his hand. He's got a channel mount, Sonata, 2 attacks, I think, is what it was, or something along those lines. And he goes, wow. I need a blue Earth card here. I mean, granted, all his blue cards are Earth, but like I think most of them, other than like I think Sotomar, I think is what he played in his deck too, are attacks. So like obviously there is a chance that he's gonna hit it. But this man just goes Sonata, non-attack, Blue Autumn's Touch, and you're like, oh, well, this game just got crazy. And so then he's like channel mount attack, or I think he attacked with his 0-cost card. And he flashed in the channel mount with creepers, if I'm not mistaken, or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what it was, but then he was able to.
Overall, it was insane.
Yeah, no, like there was no reason for him to lose if he was going to do that. So, Briar mirrors are kind of mind numbing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like top 4. I do want to say the one guy who got to top 4 who beat Fino, he was playing a Belittle Briar deck, but it was actually super different because it was like Cheerios with not like Cheerios, but it's like the standard Earth package, but with Belittle, but not as consistent Belittle. Like he's still playing like Reg Snatch, Arcana Crackle, things like that. Not Arcana Crackle. I'm
gonna pull up his list here. I'm gonna read it out for you. He's playing 3 Arcanic Crackle, 3 Belittle, 3 Channel Mount, 3 E-Strike, 2 Erase Face, 2 Exude, 2 Lead the Charge, 3 Lightning Surge, 3 Red Minnowism, 3 Nimbleism, 2 Overload. He played 2 Unmovable as well.
You see what I mean? He's not full onto that Belittle plan with like Yellow Snatch and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, he played 2 Yellow Belittle, 3 Red Belittle. But he had a lot of blues in his deck. He 3 Earth Surge, of course. He had an Amulet of Earth in his deck too. So, and then it seemed like a lot of people were playing this rounds on me. Do you happen to know the reason for that? Is it like just for the turn 0?
It is. I think it's literally just there because you're like, okay, well, I was playing Sift, right, which is like filtered 2 cards. Or on your, I I think it's just like one of those cards. It was kind of like Tome of the Arcanite in Blitz during Viserai meta. It's just like, okay, well, if I get this on my channel mount turn, it's literally 6 damage.
Yeah, and then I guess it also blocks 4. It's a blue that blocks 4 with an
Exactly.
embodiment, so it makes sense. And like, obviously, as you see in all these decks, if you guys have seen any of them, you'll see quite a bit of innovation within the Briar decks, too, which is kind of
Oh
neat.
yeah, for sure.
So,
It was really fun to see how that played out. The finals was super skillful, and overall, a great play, great tournament, and you know, Fire sits at 842 living legend points.
yeah, I want to say he's, if I'm not mistaken, somebody said Briar needs to win 4 or 5 nationals around the world to hit Living Legend. That's crazy.
Because for US Nats it's 80 points, and then for every Nats over 40 players, no, sorry, it's something like that. Over 48 players, every Nats is 40 points, and then every Nats under 48 players is 20 points. So basically, how it works is you're like 4 times 4 times 4. You know what I'm saying? It's not hard math to get. It's not very hard to get there at this point.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5 nationals, and that's donezo.
Speaking of, the, I guess, living legend in a way, before we get into talking about that, let's talk about the winner of the Calling, the Prism winning the Calling. That was pretty.
Prism who was taking down Briars like
he
nothing.
beat all 3 of his rounds were 3 Briars, and he beat all 3 of them. Like, what the actual hell? It was pretty neat, and it won. And I said this, and then literally as I said this, maybe 8 or 9 different people I saw either in the chat or on Twitter were like, "Wow, Prism won in the most Prism way possible," like flashing in a merciful, just killing him. So, shout outs to the Viscera, or shout outs to the Briar player for giving that game away. I feel like.
Yeah, I know, dude. He set himself up 5 turns before. Basically, he put himself in a position when he didn't attack the Shimmers. Like, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, that Shimmer's got all the value plus some. It was wild.
Yeah, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Dangerous. But yeah, dude, congrats to that guy. He was the guy who sent Prism over the top. That's a cool ass feeling if you ask me. So
I mean, that's kind of crazy how it needed 2 points. Apparently they didn't record 2 points, and then this guy is just like, yep, put 100 on that.
Prism Gate 2022. Now they don't have to face the nonsense and the backlash if they decided not to count it or whatever. So it's a win-win for LSS.
Yep. Dude, I kind of want to see that situation unfold though. But
I did too. I really did too. But
what's funny is they didn't add the 2 points after the fact. By the way, it's still like 1,000. 1,000.
Yeah, it's at the 1,098 or whatever.
Yep.
Whatever it is.
It was like, okay.
Don't gotta worry about that. Fuck it. Yeah. Let's see. We're talking about the Prism winning. It kind of brings up the discussion of what a lot of people have been talking about lately, and I think it needs to be brought up is Living Legend, the Living Legend system. And I know you have some sort of thoughts on this. I think I do too. I think you and I actually kind of see eye to eye on this.
First off, thanks to the patrons in the Card Guys chat and the people in there who are just in there in the general chat too for giving us these questions.
Y'all are the fucking best for sure.
They are. I think the rest of the podcast is basically just questions from them. So, and we were gonna make them talking points, but then it just kind of all got intertwined. So it all worked out. Thoughts on Living Legend system? Basically, the question was, how do we feel about the pacing of it? And I feel like the pacing is good in the case of like Prism, Chain, right? A little over a year legal. I think someone said both heroes had like over 400 days, and they were legal for a good while, over a year, and then they just kind of naturally won and got sent off, right? I think Chain only won 3 events, major events. He won the Hong Kong regionals, and
Pro Tour,
I'm
Hong
trying to
Kong
Pro Tour,
regionals.
and I, I think there might be one more. Other than that, no, I think it was just Matt Rogers and Blitz with sealed um limited chain. Yeah, yeah. So I think they kind of just, and then Prism, she's won like the a couple nationals, she's won a couple callings, so it just kind of was like a natural progression. I feel like that's kind of where I want it to be in. The meta kind of shakes up every time a hero goes. I feel like that's good. Only thing is obviously points. I I I would like it to maybe be a little bit farther. I will say that maybe like a year and a half. But
I am it, one thing that kind of I guess, and you brought it up and we have it in our talking point here is how the system is now and how it's so reliant on like a local metagame,
yeah,
whereas I could
and
go to locals and have an impact on the entire game. And
yeah. And here's the crazy thing, that number, they always have to change that based on the player base, right? Because if they put in more RTNs, then you have to decrease the number, so it's ever changing. But then if we ever see a dip in players, maybe a deck that shouldn't be there stays around a little bit longer than it should be, um, because there's just like a drop tick in players for that format or something like that.
yeah,
Not a
like
lot come
Starvo
to that
format.
season. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of that, just a side point note, heroes shouldn't be printed and then living legend in 100 days. Like, it should not be a balancing system. They should have banned Starvo or nerfed him significantly if that was the case.
It would have been
I
better
don't
just to put a "we made a mistake" 2.0, honestly. Like
exactly.
that,
Yes,
that yeah. So
it was awful. But yeah, go on.
I I don't think they should be giving points to a 9-man RTN winner.
Yeah,
Like
agree.
things like that. Like I don't think that being able to win a 9-man RTN is uh not hard, I guess is the word. I don't know. It's granted it is only 4. Sure, like for example like Azalea if it won like an RTN or something, um
It's not a
giving
lot.
it, it's not a lot, but like even if not, like let's just for example say like in 5 format when 5 and Stubbies was a thing and there was 9 people that tournament and Stubby Hammers 5 won, but it was 9 registered players. I don't think it deserves those points. I
Yeah,
think there
exactly.
needs to be a certain amount of players to even attain any. It should be 1 living legend point. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
would probably need to be the bare minimum. Um,
That kind of goes into the whole conversation of, like, I've heard on Arsenal Pass, they said it should be percentage based because how much percentage day twos, stuff like some kind of percentage, like how many does this win, how many RTNs does this hero win, then we'll give it living legend points based on that. So then it's not
sure.
like we're saying, oh, it should be 1 because it's only a 9-man RTN. Well, that shouldn't be a factor in how many people are there because it just shouldn't be awarded at the local level on a store by store who wins this store basis, because then we also saw where if the store owner is kind of newer to Fab, or they kind of just somehow random stores will just get road to nationals that don't deserve them, and certain stores
And they'll
will, which
just
that's a
report wrong, like Prison
will
Cage.
report wrong. Like, yeah, exactly. Like in that one in South Carolina where they reported Prism wrong, and that is 4 points, and she would have been living legend, and
And then
that is a
it
real
wouldn't even
problem.
win Lil. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
something to definitely address. Now,
yeah.
do you think it could be better if they do something like at all premier events, you dish out living legend points via top 8 placing?
That's what we were talking about, and
Yeah.
that's basically what we said. I think we both think at at Pro Tour, right? If they just said every hero at Pro Tour is getting 50 points, so Briar still would have got 50 points, 200, I mean, because
50 for
4 of them,
each. Yep.
50 for each. Prism still would have got 100 points. Dash would have got 50. Viscerai would have got 50. I feel like that's fair, right? In Starvo format, let's just say callings are 25 points. every time it top data calling, it would have gotten 25, 50 points, whatever they would decide for the calculator to be, because even though Starvo might not have won every calling or every event that he went to, he sure was most of the top 8.
He was it was absurd.
Exactly. And
I saw a couple where it
you
was
know,
8 Starvo, or like one Prism 8 Starvo, like one
they kind of,
Viscerai 7 Starvo, whatever it was.
yeah, and I think it's also kind of that thing. It's like certain heroes sometimes just can't get across the line to win, but does that mean you should play that hero because it's almost guaranteed not to get living legend points, right? It's kind of like Prism. Some metas she's able to win, some metas she was just not able to win. You like, for example, Dory, right? That's a hero right now that I'm like, yeah, we saw it get a top 8 finish. It didn't get any living legend points, but can it ever really make it through? Like, it can get top 8, but can it really navigate its way to a victory? And you
Yeah.
kind of don't want to have heroes that are just like, they never really receive living legend points because like you don't win a big event.
Yep. Yep. For sure. It's a lot of. I mean, they could do so many different things with it.
And
I
the
think it would help it.
Yeah, and another talking point I was like, maybe will be good or bad for the game, I think, is how fast do they introduce talents and heroes back into the game? For example, like Prism. I think Dromai was on cue. They kind of knew Prism would be living legend around this time, whether it be in a format or two from now or right as it came out, like a format before. They knew this would be around the time Prism would rotate out, right? And I
Yeah.
feel like that's why Dromai was in the set, to give them another. But what if we have a meta where Dromai is dominant and then there's no illusionist? What do they do? What does the illusionist player do? There
Yeah.
are people, a lot of people like that who are like, I stick to one class. This is my favorite class. I am a expert, or maybe they're more casual and they're just like, I just can't afford to do anything but this class, and I still want to be competitive, but I just only want to stick to one class, which
Yep.
is totally fine. But like with Chain right now, it's like, I understand I might not be getting support or a new hero in Dynasty for Shadow Runeblade. Maybe not even in the next main set I'll even get a hero. But by the time that, not Dynasty, not the next main set, but the next supplemental set after that rolls around, I want a Shadow Runeblade by then. Like, there needs to be some kind of product with a Shadow Runeblade in it, because I don't think you should have to wait more than a year to play with the cards that is your favorite style. For me,
Yeah.
it's Shadow Runeblade. I just like the banishing mechanic. I just like playing dredge style kinds of decks, and right now, other than Levia, I have no way to get my fix, and I just want to play with Ghostly Visit and Refine and Seeds of Agony again. And it's just
Yeah.
like, I think if you make people wait more than a year, that's just not fair to the loyalist of that class.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree with that. Yeah. I mean, like, it's, you hit the nail on the head with that one. I knew you were coming from a place of pure passion when you brought that up, because I knew you were going to bring up Chain, and I mean,
Yeah,
I agree though. I mean, like, I think no matter what, there should be some sort of shadow style, um, shadow style to be played in a format. Like, there should be, like, um I mean, anything, for example, right? Like, now you don't have any light illusionist cards, right? Like, you don't have
yeah,
all this stuff that was already in the format, and like, you essentially just banned an entire everything, for the time being, until you maybe come out with a living legend format. Which, I mean, like, okay, but
it's
you
one
know
of
what I
those
mean?
things. I feel like Living Legend, like, unless they start reprinting cards like crazy, that's gonna be a format that's kind of like vintage or legacy for Magic terms, right? Like, yeah, sure, the diehard fans have those decks because they own those cards. But if I'm a new player getting in, I don't want a calling to be living legend format unless the cards are, cheap and super available. Because
Yep.
why would I want to build a Bravo Star of the Show deck to compete at a calling that I can't use these cards really in anything else. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I know
why
exactly
would
what you're
they want
saying.
to make that investment just for that one format? So
Not
I think
yet in
maybe,
the game, at least.
yeah,
Right? Like,
exactly. Not yet.
I think you need to wait a few more years before you do anything
I
like that.
I definitely think like we should just be like, yeah, here's a new Shadow Rune Blade. Maybe he's, obviously not going to be as broken as Chain was with his hero ability, but he does something cool. Maybe he focuses more on the arcane damage side of the Blood Debt Shadow Rune Blade cards, because there's a lot of cards that deal with arcane damage that Chain just didn't really use.
Yeah,
So yeah, stuff like that.
for
Happy to
sure.
see that.
Yeah, same. Let's talk about nationals because we got that in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Um,
And
three
this all
weeks.
kind of
Jesus Christ.
links up to the Living Legend, Prism being gone, Nationals meta. How does that affect
we
this, right?
have we have our first time since March of last year where Prism doesn't exist. That's really weird to me. Right? Like Prism as Chain has since everybody started in Monarch. 90% of the players started in Monarch, right? Like
A lot of them did, yeah. A lot of the
a,
player
a
base.
huge percentage. And so Prism's been around as long as we've been around. And that was always one of those decks that was just like, fuck, how do you beat Prism? And
Yeah, right.
this is the first meta right now without Prism. And my question to you is, do you think it opens up the format at all? Or do you think it's just the same as far as gatekeeping goes?
I feel like one gatekeeper walks in, one gatekeeper walks out, another walks in, right? It's
Or
like
two walk in.
or two, and basically it's like opens up the meta, sure, but Briar is still crazy with channel mount, and Oldham targeting Briar will keep decks from trying to target Briar.
Yeah, and
um,
I agree, and those are the two most polarizing decks right now. I think, given Prism's gone away, right? So,
so for Nationals meta, we were like, okay, Oldham's really good, Briar's really good. Yeah, maybe and then you kind of think about maybe Dorinthia or Lexi come back and start taking down the Briars. Wait a minute, their worst matchup is Oldham. They
yeah,
can't beat. They just straight up can't beat that, and it,
put my head through a wall every time.
yeah, and just kind of makes it where it's like, yeah, it opens up the meta a little bit. Where now I think more than Oldham that will be on the rise. I think it really just opens it up for more of Bravo Star, Bravo Showstar Stopper to come in, and that's gonna be the main deck that people are like, I'm gonna play Guardian so I can be the best of both worlds of aggression with disruption and defense.
Yep, I agree.
So then I really think more impactful than Prism being living legend for Oldham. I think it's actually way more impactful for Briar. I'm sorry, for Bravo. Also impactful for Briar.
Okay.
But now the question is, for Nationals meta, do you want to play Briar, the deck that has a big target on its back? Can these Briar decks adapt to beat decks with this huge target on its back, or can is it better just to play the deck that beats Briar, or is it better to play an off meta deck that's trying to beat the decks that beat Briar, like Dromai?
Yeah. And that's something that in other card games, and even rotating into this one, it's like, do you play the best deck, or do you play the deck that beats the best deck?
Exactly.
And right now, in my opinion, the deck that beats the best deck, its worst matchup doesn't exist anymore. Being Oldham, I think Oldham has a
Yeah.
really good chance in a Briar. So
Yeah. Oh, right
right
there
now,
with you.
right now, like it's kind of those, or do you play the deck that has good matchups into both of those? That's not those two decks, and so like you're left with this really weird triangle to try to figure out, and it's just
Exactly.
you never know. Like you just never know. Like you have that mentality going into every big tournament, and then it sometimes always doesn't pan out. You know, we had that specific thing when I played Yu-Gi-Oh, and we were talking about it, and one of the kids who we play tested with a lot, we were like, we're just gonna play the deck that beats the best deck, and he ended up winning nationals with it, 2,000 people, and just
Yeah.
did it, and we were like, okay, well that was it, like that was our aha moment, and so going into every bigger tournament, that's what we all as a team ask ourselves: what do we think the best deck is? What do we think the best deck to beat the best deck is? Is there a deck that actually has a decent matchup in the both of those decks? And then we kind of have to weigh options from there and kind of playtest a crap ton, honestly, and come up with some sort of resolution to why you would bring all three of those choices, and then come up with a choice afterwards, right? So,
Or like in this case, right, Briar and Oldham. What has a good matchup into Briar and Oldham? It's Bravo, right? Bravo has
I think Bravo and I think Viserai have the two good matchups into both of them.
exactly, and then
Yeah.
it's like, then you have to ask yourself, what am I losing to on those decks, and is it worth it to bring those decks? Because what's my likelihood if I'm playing Viserai, right? If I see Kano, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Because your deck's very blue hungry. So then it's like, what are the odds I see Kano? If you're playing Bravo, something like Dromai could come up and just like really, bite you in the ass, and then you're like, okay, well, how many Dromai do I expect to see, or can I build my deck to beat that?
Yeah.
And it just kind of, like you said, creates this fun format, like what we saw at New Zealand Nationals last year, where it's like Briar was the target. Um, People brought Guardian to beat Briar, and then the guy who brought Prism won.
Yeah.
He won the whole thing.
That's that third outlier that we were talking about, right? Like,
Exactly.
so I mean, yeah, that's literally prime example of what I just said. So I agree. I mean, like, you never know either.
Never know. And I'm sure that guy, he won on Prism, but there's also Prism players who registered that tournament that saw 3 Briars in a row and just were knocked out of the water as soon as they
Immediately.
started. Exactly.
Yep.
So card game still, there's some variance, there's some luck involved.
Yep.
Side
Variance.
note, though, Icelander, I think, would be a tier 1.5 deck if Belittle was banned. What do you think?
Belittle Belittle opens up so much for a lot of decks, and just having that guaranteed blue, like just
Dude,
to have more mana, like to increase your mana curve against the Icelander deck is just kind of nuts. If it,
yeah,
I agree. If Belittle didn't was banned, we might see very skilled Icelander players go deep into tournaments if Belittle didn't exist.
I 100% agree. Right now, I'm playing a Viserai deck with Belittle, and I played through like 2 Channel Lake Frigid turns against the Icelander, played through a Hypothermia because I was like, okay, gave me Hypothermia, well, Belittle's going to search its Middle Wisdom, Spellbound Creepers, I'm going to go in anyway. So it just kind of like, against those decks like Briar and stuff like that that needs that extra card, and they're like, oh my god, this hand would be so good if I just had a blue and I didn't have to pay for this frostbite. It just makes that so much better, even with Fi, right? Fi just goes, Icelander, I think, has one of the better matches into Fi because one frostbite can legitimately just turn off a turn
Yeah, that's
very
happened to me
easily.
multiple
But
times, and I want to put my head through a wall.
exactly, but they have Belittle, and you're just like, give you a frostbite and you've already pitched a red, so I know like this is gonna go through, and they just go Belittle. It's like, okay, well, what can you do? Or you have one disruption of a frostbite, and you're like, I'm gonna Winter's Bite them, and then they're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna Belittle, and then I still have one floating and my Phoenix Flame to have 2 mana. Like,
Yeah,
if that card didn't exist, I think Icelander is super good into the aggro decks and super good into the Guardians, and then it can play combo into them. It disrupted plan into the aggro decks, and I think it could actually be very well balanced. But Little's here, so I think I'm going to put Icelander tier 2 going into Nats meta. I think it
sure.
can win a smaller one, but I think the aggro decks just have a slight edge on it right now.
Yep. A lot of people are going to have a plan for that in the bigger tournaments, right? And so, like you
That's
said,
the other thing.
you'll see it in the
Cat's out of the
smaller
bag
ones.
too. That's out of the bag
for
too.
sure, for sure.
People know Icelander's a deck. I think everyone's going to be rocking at least AB2, AB3. It's not going to get any free wins. I think we're finally out of the Flesh and Blood meta where people rock 0 AB. I think you just can't do it anymore.
You're kind of forced to at this point.
Yeah, it's too greedy.
Weirdly enough, I think a, a sleeper deck for this upcoming Nationals format is Dromai. As crazy as it sounds, I think that it didn't get a lot of light. You would see like one in like the last the top tables for a little while, and then it would make like top 16, right? And then you see like one at like a battle hardened with like the first week, and then now you go on. Here we are, go on Flesh and Blood Online, and like you pointed out right before this tournament. Yeah, shout out to getting to see like the different matches and stuff, right?
Because it gives you shout out to the guy who at the Calling Singapore, was XO and CC, but just kind of got a little unlucky in draft, and then the guy in the Pro Tour who was X4 with Briar. I mean, sorry, getting all the names mixed up tonight. X4 with Dromai, just one away from topping.
Yeah, I think that deck is sneaky good, especially if you know how to play the deck. We've been theorizing with it a little bit and trying to figure out exactly how to play it and how to beat it. And I think that deck has something that a lot of people don't fully grasp yet.
And going into our meta discussion and everything, it's like right now, I played a couple Dromais in my Viscerai deck, just absolutely curb stomping them. So it's like going back into our discussion, you can either build your deck to beat Viscerai and that, or you can just be like, what's my percentage of seeing Viscerai? Maybe in a couple weeks, people hop off Viscerai, and then you just see people just playing a better Briar deck, and you're like, I can beat that. I can't beat Viscerai, so if I see one, I'll take that as my loss, right? Or if I see one or two, that's fine. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna beat everything else.
Yep.
Just hope to dodge. So that's another deck, and another fun part about this national season coming up is finding what side of the meta do you want to be on.
Yep, for sure. Do you think there's any sort of untapped deck strategy that anybody's come up with? Like, do you think there's something out there looming that people are waiting for nationals? Like, kind of like the Matt Folks Belittle Briar deck. Like, not many people really knew about that or played it. Like you had to build your deck around it, Belittle in that specific deck. So, do you think there's something that somebody else could play, like engine wise or something?
I mean, it's just how you want to build. It's weird because Flesh and Blood, it's like one or two cards can completely change a deck, right? But the other thing is that Flesh and Blood's also a game of a card pool so small that pretty much every competitive player who wants to is trying to gun for nats knows pretty much every card in the game, because there's only X amount of sets out. It's not very hard to go, I want to play Viscerai. Here's every Runeblade card I can play. Here's every generic card I can play. What's the best deck I can make, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like where you have to go and do a little soul searching for yourself and just figure out what you're trying to do. I feel like there could be a lot of crazy decks that could come out. I just don't know. Maybe someone finds a disruption Oldham deck like we saw at the Battle Harden in New Zealand, where it was like the Biting Gale into the what's that one
Chill?
called? Insidious Chill.
Yeah.
Like, that combo is crazy. So you don't know what's going to come out. We don't know if we're going to see more disruptive Oldhams, more defensive Oldhams, more disruptive Bravos, more defensive Bravos. For all we know, like, a deck that could be coming out is like some kind of like Turtle Fi deck. Maybe like with Flick Flax and defense reactions for Guardian, and then just aggro into everything else. And
my brother in Christ, you're just memeing at this point.
Oh man, what do you mean? That's you're just playing Katsu.
Nah, I think you just play Katsu if you're gonna do that.
But you get what I'm saying. Like,
I know exactly what you mean though.
Card pools out there. Tremor and Razor can change the whole chain deck. This round on me and Yellow Snatch and Belittle can change the whole Briar deck. It's just a couple cards difference is all you need. So
Overload.
I'm definitely Exactly. I'm definitely excited to see what comes out.
I want to see this innovation. I need more shit like that. That'd be nice.
You're seeing it every night when I play.
That's very true.
Ah.
I guess what do we think nationals will look like as far as a metagame percentage? What do you think the community will all sort of agree on, and what we'll see? I think obviously, like I said, the most two play decks will be Oldham Briar. But what else do you think, in percentage wise, that we'll see?
I don't know, to be honest with you, right? That's kind of one of those things that's hard to say because I do think there are a lot of good Oldham and, diehard Guardian fans out there. For example, if I'm, Prism player looking for a new deck, I am not hopping on Oldham, most likely, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like me as an aggro player, let me tell you, I don't mind the playstyle Oldham. Problem is that I don't want that mental strain. I don't want that worrying about going to time. I don't like playing control necessarily. I like playing it in sealed and blitz because you can actually fatigue out your opponent super easy. But in CC, that's a whole different story. Um, so I'm personally, even if I think Oldham's well positioned, I rather be on the meta of I'm gonna beat Oldham, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's and I feel like people might agree Oldham's very good. This is a very good deck. But I think more people will try to beat Oldham than actually play Oldham. And like if you told me, I think there would be. It's more likely that Briar will evolve to beat Oldham and to beat the deck that's targeting her. I think Briar's going to be a very part of this meta share. I think Oldham's going to be a good part of this meta share. I think Bravo could be above Oldham in the meta share because I think people are going to go, okay, I need to disrupt Briar. What a lot of people don't do, which is if you're watching this and you want to go to Nats, is if you have that Matthew Folks belittle deck, you got to understand if you play Bravo into that and keep changing your Bravo deck to beat that, but you don't change that Briar deck to beat the Bravo deck, you aren't getting good testing in.
Not at all.
Because you have to realize that that deck's going to evolve too. So what you need is a good Briar player trying to beat you and beat its other matchups to get equivalent testing. So there might be some people out there who just throw, a super disruptive pummel heavy Bravo deck into that belittle deck and be like, oh yeah, I can easily beat this. Yeah. Not thinking that, oh yeah, Briar's adapted to defense reactions and all this and many ways to beat you.
Yep.
And they just don't expect it. And then they get blown out, but they thought that they had a super good matchup into Briar, but they don't realize that was last month's Briar. This is new Briar. So, just for people testing, I can't tell you the exact meta share. I don't know it, but I'm just gonna say this: keep your testing open, and if you are playing a Sarai deck or Bravo deck or Oldham deck, make sure you're playing against someone who's playing against. You're playing against a Briar player who's actively updating their deck and actively changing it. Don't just tell your friend, yeah, play the Matthew Folks little deck and run it into me and I'm going to beat the shit out of it. That's not going to work in a month. That
Nope.
deck is changing. That deck, I guarantee you, Matthew Folks, if once he gets back from his vacation and everything, he's probably already has 5-10 plans to change that deck. That's the deck he plans to bring for UK Nationals.
Yeah, for
So,
sure, for sure. Wow, you just full of knowledge, Sebastian. Jesus Christ. Um, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with just how it's probably going to end up going. I think Bravo is kind of one of those decks that just might just put it in you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, obviously, now that we're done with, now that we're 3 weeks away from nationals, we've kind of got an understanding of what we think, at least we're going to be looking at as far as format and just our thoughts on all that. Going after nationals, we have worlds, but I want to talk about Dynasty because it's any hour now it seems like Fab is going to give us some sort of information on Dynasty, and we just saw. Go ahead.
I do believe that Dynasty's coming out like the same weekend as Worlds or something, or the weekend after that, right? Because I believe Worlds is actually going to be Uprising format.
Yeah, I believe that might be the case too.
Because the calling San Jose said this is your last chance to play competitive Uprising format CC. So
Makes
that was
sense.
interesting. I thought that they were going to release it before Worlds and kind of do a shakeup, but turns out they're not. They're going to release it after.
Jeez, I hope so. I don't want. It'd be neat to see Worlds being something brand new, but at the same time, not really. But
Yeah.
what are you looking for out of Dynasty? What I know one thing I want. I want a playable Fabled. What do you? That's what I want out of Dynasty, like a generic good Fabled card.
All right, so his name's Bane. He's bound by Shadow. All right, but he's not chained. He's Bane.
Bane. Okay. Is he gonna have the face mask and everything?
Yeah, exactly. He's just chained with the Bane face mask on, and that's his only change. Same hero ability, same text, everything. I can play Seeds because he's Bane, not Chain. He's Bane, and yeah, that's it.
I already told you what's gonna happen. They're gonna give us Viscerai bound by shadows. It's gonna be a Shadow Viscerai. It's gonna have the same effect as Viscerai and also the same effect as Chain. And they're gonna give us Mordred Tide that can be played from the Banished. And here we are.
And we'll be banned in a month.
It'll be banned in 2 weeks. But yeah,
you know what? I will go around the globe and travel to, oh, there's a Battle Harden in Canada? All right, yeah, I'm going to go spike a tournament with Shadow Viscerai that can play Mordred Tide from the Banished real quick.
Imagine Seeds of Agony and Mordred Tide.
Yeah, Mordred Tide, 8 Seeds Riftbind, 40 Arcane, and 13 damage.
Oh man, just imagine. But yeah, I really would like a playable Fabled that like kind of like Heart and Eye of Ophidia. Give us something else sort of like that, right? Like something that more people can kind of tech that one card for their deck. Maybe it could help previous decks and existing decks, and then also, maybe it can help a deck that just came out in Dynasty as well. Because we as we know, we just saw the Emperor hero get announced at Pro Tour Lille, and it's a It's a Royal Draconic Warrior Wizard. Yeah, that Wizard Warrior. And so it looks to me that we're gonna more than likely get a whole bunch of classes and get a whole bunch of new talents be intertwined together, which is pretty neat.
What I'm hoping for out of Dynasty is, like, if I can't get a Shadow Runeblade, just give me a Shadow hero that's good, that plays like a Shadow hero should, and doesn't have a blank hero effect that just says die to blood debt.
Duma.
Duma, exactly. Like, I would take Illusion of Shadow. I take, it's funny. I almost said to myself, the only thing I wouldn't take is Brute Shadow, but that because it already exists and it's awful. Yeah, but any other hero Shadow version, I'll take. Ninja Shadow, that'd be cool. Wizard Shadow, like, yeah, I'll take
Shadow
anything,
Dorinthia. You get Blood Debt reprise cards,
brother.
Tell me. Actually, you know what? You know what I want from Dynasty? This is the only thing I want from Dynasty. I don't care about anything else. Give me a red and a blue run through, and I'll play Dorinthia. That's it.
Brother, everyone will.
Yeah.
Everyone will also have Sink Below and Unmovable and Fate Foreseen in their sideboard.
Now, talk about a polarizing hero at that point. Oh my god. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Overall for Dynasty, I don't want another Everfest. That is the main thing I want to talk about. Is like,
we were never going back to Everfest. Let's be honest.
Yeah, fuck Everfest. Fuck, C word star of the show. I'm not gonna go that far, but I hate that hero. He was like the worst thing for the game. That was the only time in the game. Kyle remembers very vividly where I'm like, I'm not enjoying myself here. Like, I was at India, I'm like, this isn't fun. Like,
no, it really wasn't.
We were at this huge tournament talking to people. Everyone was so upset. Everyone wasn't having fun. Like, sure, I was with my friends. We went to Fogo de Chao. Like, it was a good experience overall. But, like, playing the game was the worst part about Indy. My favorite thing to say about Indy is the only people who had fun at Indy were the people who top date the calling and top date the battle harden. Those are the only people who had fun at Indy. Everyone else just was like, fuck.
Everyone else was miserable.
Exactly.
And it wasn't close.
Yeah, and basically whatever hero they release into CC, whether it's one hero, two hero, I don't care. If they release a hero to or into CC, let them have good effects. Let them shake up the meta. Don't let them polarize the meta. Like that's this kind of goes into that design philosophy at oh sorry, that's the next thing. We're gonna talk about design philosophy, but like basically uprising heroes. I love the design of uprising heroes.
They're very balanced. Like obviously, Stubby Hammers was a card for Fi, and like sure, but that's not Fi. That's strictly Stubby. I think
The thing is, they knew that. They knew about it happening. That's why they banned it in Blitz, because they knew that was going to happen. But they just wanted to see how it rolls for a format, right? They're just like,
sure.
fuck it, you know? But like overall, Fi, super balanced and, you know, fun hero. I think he's a good hero. And especially if we see all these aggro decks keep on rotating out, I think he will be eventually the best aggro deck, right? If not, he was the best aggro deck for a certain point. Then you have like Jeremiah doing some really cool things, super well balanced. All her cards are really good. Most of them are really good in a really unique way to play the game. Then you have Icelander, same thing. You know, it's good, but it's balanced, unique way to play the game, super great for the game. And I feel like these heroes were so well designed. The set was well designed for CC, not for draft. It was just so well designed, and that's what I want the next hero to be like. Okay, yeah, if it's a Draconic or whatever it is, Shadow, and it has some support attached to it, make the support good. Make it a fun, cool hero to play with that is like, you know, make it tier 1, tier 1.5. Make it like in the meta contenders. Kind of like how we have this open meta where almost any hero can play it. I want it to be played, but I don't want it to be Bravo Star of the Show where it's like one deck format and I hate my life again.
Amen.
Amen. Exactly.
Amen. I just give me balance. Give me something where all sorts of decks are going to be able to compete with all other sorts of decks, and for the most part, and keep it healthy. If we keep it healthy, then like the OP stuff, will obviously get better, and then
By the way,
phase out, and then the other decks will get better, and we'll actually have some sort of balance.
don't make a blitz set and then print Revel.
I'll never forget the first time I got reveled in the Hong Kong show match. I was like, I just didn't even know that card existed at the time, and I'm like, all right, cool. Well, all he can do is Rosetta Thor me, and I live, and I can just kill him on this turn. Or I remember you sitting beside me, and you were like, I mean, yeah, like you're good. And I'm like, all right, cool, block this way. And he's like, Revel in Ruinblood. I was like, what the fuck is this card? I read it, and I'm like, that's not fair. He kills me on exacts.
I have 6 Arcane coming at me. That's insane. In Chain or in Viscerai, where it literally just killed a whole Blitz season.
Sheesh.
Got one more question.
What are your thoughts on the set designs, though? Do you like? Do you think it should be three or four heroes? Because I see a lot of back and forth on this.
4 heroes, better draft experience. Overall, I'm on the boat where I love WTR draft. I love Monarch draft.
I actually really liked WTR draft. I only did it a few times for the Farewell to Wraith, but that was probably some of my most fun Flesh and Blood I've ever played. Because I mean, 100%. Playing Katsu was really fun. Playing Dory was really fun, and every deck was you could do something with it. It was very balanced. And then
I felt like in those drafts you can pick a lane too. Like
yeah,
you can go. Okay, well I'm sitting on the right side of the table to build this busted Levia deck, right? Great, you can build that, and even though that's not the best hero in CC or whatever, like it's still a fair and balanced draft. And into the 3 hero format, set is I'm gonna say I've never drafted Arc, but I heard that draft isn't great. But I'm gonna put this
I drafted
below Arc.
I wanted to put my head through a wall.
I haven't drafted Arc, but I'm gonna put it below Arc.
You know what? I can probably kind of agree. My one Arc experience was that one day at Gigabytes, where you did draft it, but like we left right after round 1.
Yeah, we did.
I got
Arc, yeah.
The guy to my left took every single arcane barrier he saw, and I never got to see any arcane barrier. And my round 1 opponent played 4 red Voltic bolts in a row.
Man, get good.
I was like, I'm done. We're going to eat. I don't care. I don't want to play this game. So yeah, that was my one and only experience with Arc Draft, and that's the end of that. I can definitely
Uprising's still worse.
I think Uprising's probably worse. The only reason I think Tails is actually not awful was because you could stay open and choose different elements and then choose your hero. So like it added an extra layer on top of it where it also just didn't feel like it was 3 heroes kind of, right? Yeah. Which I thought the dynamic of Tails was really nice. To me, that's probably my second favorite draft format. I enjoyed drafting that set.
I would say that probably if I had to rate my draft experiences, it probably would be like Tails, WTR, and I don't know what to put which one over the other. I'm going to put Tails over WTR because I was fairly good at Tails and I liked how the format shaped up, and I feel like you said, even though there was only Briar, Oldham, Lexi, you could pick Ice, and you would not be locked into one hero yet. And then you can see, okay, well, I picked Ice. Okay, well, I see a lot of Earth cards coming towards me, so now I can go Ice Earth into this good Oldham deck.
Yeah.
Or you're like, I see a lot of Lightning cards coming towards me. Okay, well, now I can pivot into this really good Lexi deck. And that just, it was so fun. There were so many cool elements of Tails, like, people undervalue just drafting blues in the pack 1, like Earth Blues. And that's what I would do. I would draft Earth Blues pack 1, maybe good defense reactions, and then I'd just be like, all right. And then pack 3, that when they're all trying to scramble for their blues, I'd just be like, good card, finish out my deck, good card, finish out my deck, good card, finish out my deck, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a lot of skill to that draft, and it was very fun. And I feel like if they do 3 heroes again, you have to have all 3 heroes share the same talent, like one talent for all 3 heroes, or you have to do what Tails did, 3 talents, but they each share one of the talents.
Here, okay, I have a bold prediction. I'm cutting you off. Bold prediction. I can't lose this thought. So they just showed us Royal Draconic Warrior Wizard Warrior. So what if they make this entire Dynasty set, and this is just spitballing an idea. What if they make this entire set a warrior class, but they have a different secondary class that they're representing? Right? You see what I'm saying? So you're able to have warrior cards that you can draft, but you can also draft another type. Like you have wizard warrior, so you can draft the wizard and the warrior sub. Or then on top of that, you have ninja warrior. Shout out to the show Ninja Warrior. And so you have like ninja and warrior you can draft in the deck. I'm just spitballing ideas here, but like that could be something that kind of mimics Tales of Aria in that way and still has some sort of extra layer of draft.
Yeah, and it either is like you have 4 heroes and you have like, maybe 4 classes. I mean, 4 like 3 talents or something, or 2 talents in 4 classes, right? Or like 2 talents. Like I kind of like the idea of what you're saying, where you're like, yeah, it's a whatever the talent is, like Shadow, Draconic, whatever, Warrior, Wizard. It's a Shadow, Draconic, and then that way it makes a super unique draft because you can have one hero that's Shadow, and then you have that's a Shadow, Ninja, Ninja Brew. Ninja Brew. And then you have another one that's a Shadow, but it's a Warrior Wizard, so it can share the Shadow cards, but it can't share the Wizard or the Warrior cards, or maybe you give them one sharing thing. Maybe it's a Shadow Warrior and then like, a Brute Warrior, something like that. And like you said, there's a lot of ways you can explore that, which I would be down for. But I think the heroes need to share classes or talents or something if it's going to be 3 hero, because there's just not enough. By the way, also bring it back to 15 cards, please. This fucking 14 cards a pack shit.
I
Awful.
agree. I agree. It makes my head hurt a little bit thinking about it,
Yeah,
just because uh, margin of error is went down quite a bit in percentage because of that specific reason.
yeah.
So
Do you remember the first draft we did? I counted all my cards. I'm like, I'm missing 3 cards. Wait. Everyone count the cards. I'm missing 3 cards. I
yeah,
was like, I'm missing
that
three
was when
cards.
we did that first video, right, with Alex or something like that.
Yeah,
I
or
think,
something. One of the
and
ones that are locals. I was like,
yeah, and
I'm
we
missing
were.
3 cards.
I was like, shit, we've done messed up the draft. This is not good. And and come to find out, we looked at the pack and everybody's like, yeah, it's less card. We're like, oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no, math is hard. so yeah. Man, we have 3 weeks till nationals. I really just didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
Good God. We've got our testing cut out for us. I think you and I are onto something. So we're gonna bring it to the team. We're gonna once they get back, because they all get back on Monday, right? So once they all get back, I think it's time to grind. It's time to get it's time to get there. So because
for sure.
obviously, I'm gonna bring up another question real quick, just because shout outs to my team. Shout outs to your team. Shout outs to our team, Sebastian, the card guys. If anybody didn't know. One of our patrons, Mr. Outrun, asked a question last night, 7:58 p.m. at Missing Triggers Podcast. What does the Card Guys team need to do differently when prepping for nationals to put up better results as a team? Afterwards, he said no shade. But no, I think that question needs to be brought up because of the fact that, and I had this conversation with Nam, and
Yeah.
I think they wasted a lot of time playing CS:GO. I'm gonna go ahead and say it straight up, because they would test a couple games, and then you'd find all 3 of those fuckers just on CS:GO, and I'm like, I get that's a way to wind down, but going into Lille and you're spending thousands of dollars to stay there for almost 2 weeks and go do a lot of stuff afterwards too, like you're traveling for a tournament, right? Like you got your PTI, or you have a way of qualifying for this tournament, and you pull the trigger and you're going to go. That should be where all your attention goes. If you were, if and like for you and I, for example, could we have been a little better about wanting to test with them? Sure, I get that, but also you and I had our own stuff going on. But if you're going to a tournament and it's it's the second biggest tournament this game's seen so far, right? We haven't had Worlds yet, and so when you're on the professional tour, you need to test like you are getting paid to do so, because you want to go and you want to place. And I think when you're not putting most of your time and effort into that, you're not going to see the results. And here we go again. I mean, like, obviously they didn't do well on the Pro Tour. Josh did the best, going I think 8-6, and he got like 81st place. Nathan ended up day 2ing the calling at 7-1, which is which is really good. Don't get me wrong, that's insane. Like, we all know how good Nathan is.
He overall went X3. I think he got like 17th place.
Yeah,
So
he got
did very
7.
well.
He got 17th. He lost his first 2 rounds and then 1 out for day 2. So, but I think putting in that extra little time, especially for a tournament that caliber, all your time needs to be. Go ahead.
Another thing I want to say is, and like I said, I'm gonna keep this general. People who are playing in Pro Tours or Worlds, even, my advice is, if you go X3 day 1, right, or X4 if it's in Worlds standards or something like that, whatever. You make day 2, but you just barely made day 2. Play the rest of the tournament out. Don't drop for the calling, because you're way more likely to 7-0 day 2 and
2
get
people
your
did it.
PTI. Yeah, we saw Michael Fang and
Cody Williams.
Cody Williams do it.
Yeah,
Got
they
their
both went
PTI,
X4.
got paid out, got their PTI, like just rolling, And it's way easier to do that than to 11-2 a calling or 12-3 a call. Like, it's
Yeah,
way easier to just go 7-0.
yeah, agree.
So just if you're ever in that situation where you're like, oh, I can't top 8 the Pro Tour, or I can't top 8 Worlds. Well, buddy, if you get top 16 at Worlds, that's still pretty fucking good.
That's incredible. Like
Yeah.
most of this community would kill to top 16 worlds or top 16 a pro tour. You know? Like
So don't count yourself out just because X3 day 1. That's what I have to say. If you make
yeah.
day 2, play day 2 out. Just do it for the experience, do it for the elo, do it for the, you got to play day 2 at your first, whether it's your third Pro Tour by Pro Tour 3 runs around or it's your, first one. And if you're at Worlds and you X4 day 1 and they let everyone who X4s day 2, but you can't really make it, you just go, hey, I day 2 Worlds. I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah. And, I think I think everybody's, from our side of everything, I think everybody's going to use Pro Tour Lille as a motivator for nationals and going into Worlds, right? So, I'm hoping it's a wake up call for everyone. I hope when they get back on Monday, Tuesday we hit the ground running.
So basically, I guess the answer to the question is stick to your guns and never stop testing.
Actually, I'm going to say it. That's perfect. Freaking don't pivot last second. Me and Alex last year at Nationals was on the bad end of that. And then Alex going in the Pro Tour was Prism 100% until 3 days before and tried to play Brian and have a good time. Stick to what you know and grind out games with it because you are going to be rewarded for your experience, not for 100%. A meta call most of the time. But if you're a very good pilot of a certain deck that has a percentage in the meta, don't steer away from that.
And here's the thing, like Nationals coming up, right? If you are a good Viserai player, but you don't think Viserai can go better than X3 and CC, you're like, yeah, there's 8 CC rounds. I don't know if I can do better than 5-3. Still play Viserai, because there's that chance that you do what Pablo Pintor did, and you just 3-0 both your draft pods, and then you go X3 and CC, which is still a good record in a Pro Tour, and get that top 8. And, or just because you know the deck, you go 2-1 in CC, 3-0 one pod, then you take the load off yourself, and you can go, 6-2 in CC, and then you just, squeeze your way into top 8.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what you need to do. Put your head down and test. Don't get lazy. Because if you get lazy, that's when you fuck up. That's when you fuck up hardcore.
Don't ever feel confident too. Never feel confident until you're there playing, right? Then you can feel confident because you're like then you boost yourself up. Of course.
I mean, like you have to get in that mentality. You have to go in there and be like, I'm the shit. This is what's happening. I'm like this may be a little too cocky, but like what I used to tell the players in other card games when I used to play and like I would run those teams and stuff, and when I was like mentoring a couple of younger people who ended up doing very well later on in their career for like certain card games, I always tell them, when you're sitting down in front of someone, like for example, if I sit down and I'm playing against Tarek Patel, just obviously the national champion, right? Like that's who it would be, right? I don't want my mentality going to that match being on the back foot because I'm intimidated by who the person is. I'm going to that match every single time thinking I'm the better player, and I'm going to win this game. I'm going to do my best to play my best and win this game, and he's going to have respect for me after I beat him. I don't give a shit who the fuck your opponent is. Like that needs to be your mentality every single time. You also, for the most part, there's exception to this, but you need to always assume that your opponent knows everything. You need to play to all your outs and everything like that. If you slack up once, you're going to get got. So exactly. Like you just need to be on your P's and Q's for that.
And the other thing is, if you take an early loss or you take a loss and you're not knocked out yet, you can still top 8, and you're like, man, I'm really feeling this, but I took this loss to some, like for example, if you're playing Briar in the in Nationals coming up and you lose to Dorinthia like round 4 or 5, one of your early CC rounds, and you're like, I can't believe I just took a loss to Dorinthia because I didn't see my, like a deck that, or like Bolton or something like that, where this happened to me at Vegas where I took a loss early round 3 to a deck I'm like, I should have won that match. I misplayed. I did all this, and it shouldn't have beat me. I played against this deck 100 times, and then don't let that tilt you. Let that light a fire under you, and
Yeah.
just go all the way.
I mean,
and be like, can't drop a game.
I told you this, and I think we covered this in the first episode. Like,
Yep.
you just need to make sure when you sit down, like I told you all the times, like you need to have the biggest cock in the room. Like, as just blunt as that is, like, let yourself know that you have to win one more each time, right? Like that's your mentality. I have to win one more in a row every single round, and you buckle down and you let yourself know you have the biggest cock in the room. And then, like, nobody can beat you. I mean, you had the craziest streak of chain mirrors in Vegas. And I think that was all accompanied, obviously, by skill, obviously by your deck choice, but that was your mentality going into those games, right? So if you can keep that mindset going into those crucial games after you punt away a game, that's your resiliency is what's going to help push you through these later rounds in this tournament. So, if anybody's listening, even if it's not the car guys, I'm going to have this conversation with them, even though it's coming from PTI-less me. I think that's exactly how you're going to do well in the tournament, is your mindset. Get good sleep.
Get good sleep, mindset, stay testing. While you're testing, don't think that your deck's don't be confident in your deck until
you submit it.
Until you submit it. That's what I would have to say. Like, at the last minute, you can hear some shit that totally changes your whole outlook. Shout out to Pro Tour 1. Last minute, you can hear something that totally changes your outlook on the whole meta and everything. So always, like you said, don't be confident until your deck's fully submitted.
If you have an idea for a deck, for a card in the deck, test it. Don't ask somebody, and then don't write it off because they said it. They don't think it's that good. Test it for yourself. Come to your own conclusions. Because at the end of the day, Yellow Belittle is a really good card. Right, Sebastian?
I'm playing it.
Well, I think that's going to be it for us tonight. We've gone for an hour and a half. This is a really good episode, and I had a lot of fun talking and everything tonight.
I did too, man.
Takeaways from everything. We'll be back same time next week, I think. So,
yep.
If I see you at Nationals and you smell, I will let you know. If you come to Nationals and I see some yellow gunk on your teeth, I'm gonna ask you to go. I'm gonna give you a toothbrush, okay? A portable, little toothbrush, and I'm gonna say, go brush your teeth. If you smell, I'm going to spray you with Febreze. Actually, I'm probably not going to do that because it might be against TOS of just everything with flesh and blood because of that magic guy that one time that took pictures with butt cracks. I'm going to have to see if I can get approved to do this. And when you take a shit, wipe yourself. Make sure you're clean because you're sitting in your own shit and you're gonna radiate a little bit of gunk. You know what I'm saying? So like we don't want none of that. And shout out to my smelly people because y'all need Jesus and y'all need my Lord and Savior dial soap. All right, like figure yourself out. But any final words before we get the hell out of here, Sebastian?
Oh man, you just let it rip.
Let it rip. Awesome. Well, again, subscribe if you haven't already. If you've stayed this long, you're a fucking trooper. I love every single one of you. Shout out to Austin. You know who you are. And if you guys, have any extra money you want to shoot to us on Patreon just to help us get some equipment, that'd be cool too. We love each and every one of you guys, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Can I get a do, man?
Eating.